Now, the reason they had that declaration was recognized by international treaty law in order to establish the new legal crown entity of the Incorporated United States. Middle Templar King George III agreed to in the Treaty of Paris. Quote, between the Crown of Great Britain and said United States. Well, wait a minute. The Crown of Great Britain is the same as the Crown of the United States. So there's the agreement right there that is totally a total fraud. So, most important is the actual signatories of the Treaty of Paris. Like I said, they were all esquires. So, this legally signifies officers of the King's Court, which are now known as Templar Courts or Crown Courts. So this is the same Crown Templar title given to Alexander Hamilton. So the David Hartley, he was a Middle Templar of the King's Court representing the United States. John Adams, Ben Franklin, and John Jay. They were all the signatories for the United States and were also Middle Templars of the Crown's Court through the Bar Association. Plainly written in history, proves again that Crown Temple was representing both parties to the agreement. Perfect and elaborate scam, huh? How are the American people ever going to know this? They don't. They don't go into research like we do and find out. They have no idea this is sitting in the background controlling them.
Now you mentioned Patrick Henry's opposition to such.
Right.
Was there a sizable number of people involved in government in that day?
Oh yeah, yeah. There was. If you get stories, Anti-Federalist. It's called The Anti-Federalist, and it's edited by Herbert Storing, and it's a really good book. It's a complete Anti-Federalist book, and Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, Maryland, Virginia, and New York are all represented in here. It also gives the speeches of Patrick Henry in the Virginia State Ratifying Convention. That's 1788. And they have, numerous. Agrippa is one of them from Massachusetts. They wrote. Another one was the minority of the convention. They all called themselves different names at the time. Then there's the essays. There is the Pennsylvanian. And what happened in one of the Pennsylvanians, and also the letters called the Federal Farmer, there was a big hullabaloo because they said Pennsylvania couldn't get down to the convention, and they already passed everything without them being there. So in the Pennsylvania, called the Minority Convention, it says, I'm quoting right out of Storing's, the Congress might gloss over this conduct by construing every purpose for which the state legislatures now lay taxes to be for the general welfare and therefore as of their jurisdiction. And the supremacy laws of the United States is established by Article 6. And it goes on and talks about it and says, as there are no articles of taxation reserved to the state governments, Congress may monopolize every source of revenue and thus indirectly demolish the state governments. Well, they've done that now. For without funds, they could not exist. The taxes, duties, and excises imposed by Congress may be so high as to render it impracticable to levy further sums on the same articles. But whether this should be the case or not, if the state government should presume to impose taxes, duties on the same articles with Congress, the latter may abrogate and repeal the laws whereby they are imposed upon the allegation. Now, those people knew at the time, and they were coming in and saying all this happy stuff was going to happen, and it was not right. But the average American people, just like the average American people today, they could care less. They weren't involved. They didn't want to get involved. They just wanted to make their life and go on and get what they could and have all their worldly possessions that they had. And, they weren't worried about how government men who was taking over and ruling their lives, to infinity.
Now, this this happened under Jefferson's watch. Is that true?
No, this was under Washington.
Washington, okay.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, because this was October 12th, 1787.
okay, right. And Jefferson wouldn't come around until the turn of the century.
Yeah.
All right.
And it said in their thing, he's saying, "Dear Sir," and he goes in and says, "It is to be observed that when the people shall adopt the proposed Constitution, it will be their last and supreme act. It will be adopted not by the people of New Hampshire, Massachusetts, etc., but by the people of the United States." See, right there, they're telling you that they knew that the people, the common man in the states, had nothing to do with the Constitution creation, ratification, or whatever, and it was never ratified anyway.
There's a Marxist, and despite the fact that he is such, wrote a book called Toward an American Revolution.
Uh-huh.
And his name is Friesa, F-R-E-I-S-A. And you know, he had some points which I had to take into consideration, despite the fact that he thinks maybe Marxism is the answer. But you know, he called it an elitist document. Would you agree with those terms?
He called the what?
He called the Constitution an elitist document.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Right.
It was created by the elite people who were the signers. The people didn't sign it. It was only those people who had money and they had the power, and they actually owned land in Europe, Great Britain, France.
Well, could you comment then, though, on the Bill of Rights? I mean, I think that is exceptional. How does that fit in with the whole idea of their...
The Bill of Rights, all right, the Bill of Rights was strictly for the United States. It was strictly for those people and not the common inhabitants, of which there was 207 inhabitants in the area called the United States, or Washington, D.C., what it is now. In other words, if you go and read the John Barron case, you will see that the Chief Justice comes right out and says that the Bill of Rights was not made for the people of the states because those states had their own Bill of Rights, and it was only for the United States. And that's all the way up to the present year 2000 when I studied it, and I found a book on constitutional law that goes through every case that was brought up, which was never been overturned, the John Barron case.
Well, when you say it's only for the United States, are you defining the United States as you did before?
Washington, D.C. That's it.
Okay.
The United States is actually Congress assembled.
Okay, so in other words, they granted themselves
Yes.
these rights.
They granted themselves that Bill of Rights, not the average common man on the street.
And so they just indemnified them against certain kind of, dictatorial powers and such, but the rest of the people, as you and I are,
right.
We swung in the wind.
Yeah, that's all.
And still do to this day.
Still are, yeah. That's why they say don't bring in the constitutional rights. When you bring in... See, what they did, how they brought in the Bill of Rights into the states is under the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. That's how they started to bring it in. And the case, the book, probably have to go to the library and get it. It is the Cases in Constitutional Law, the 3rd edition, by Robert E. Cushman and Robert F. Cushman. It is Appleton Century Cross. And it'll give you all the cases in constitutional law, and I'll give you the Library of Congress card number is 68-18704. The last time it was copyrighted was 1967.
Okay.
And they have, in the John Barron case, I'll open that, I just have it here. It said...
I tell you what, I mean, hold on a second for that. Right at that point, because I tell you, we haven't really done any business. I want to tell everybody, this is the Grassy Knoll. With us is the Informers. You can go to the website atgpress.com, and you'll find his writings. And let's talk about that now, because you do have certain publications for purchase, do you not?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm going to that right now. Now, just to clarify, you do have one volume of Which One Are You that is out of print.
Right.
And I think you've addressed this before, but I'll ask you to do it again. Everything else is available.
Yes.
Okay, and also, folks, he's asked very specifically about how to purchase such, and you had said that if anybody just puts in a notation on the money order or inside a letter that you heard this on a radio show, that you would, give them 10% off the total?
Right.
Okay. All right. Anything else that you want to alert people to that you have under your name on that site?
No, that's about it. The other site is just right after mine, is James Montgomery,
right.
And that will go a lot more into the Crown, and because he is doing a lot of the research in that, and I let him do that, and I just kept on going on the taxes and the rest of the history, and putting it together. But Montgomery is an excellent researcher on that. In fact, I emailed you something over.
Yes.
The other day on that.
If you do go to the homepage of atgpress.com,